Right, Jay? I'm on a 20-second delay, so yes, it does need to say that.
Okay, well, good evening, everyone. I would like to call this meeting to order at 6:01 p.m. I'd like to announce that this meeting is being recorded. May I have a roll call of attendance?
Director Aguilar?
Here.
Topliff?
Here.
Brandt?
Here.
Freeman? Here. Craig?
Here.
Deshler?
Here.
Schultz?
Here.
Before we begin, we would like to acknowledge the Chumash people who are the traditional custodians of this land. We pay our respects to the Chumash elders, past, present, and future, who call this place, Anascoyo, the land that Isla Vista sits upon, their home. We are proud to continue their tradition of coming together and growing as a community. We thank the Chumash community for their stewardship and support, and we look forward to strengthening our ties as we continue our relationship of mutual respect and understanding. At this point, I'd like to move into the consent agenda. Do any directors wish to ask questions or pull items from the consent agenda? I see none. Is there a motion on this consent agenda?
I'll move to approve. Second.
All right, we have the motion by Topliff and the second by Schultz. Is there any public comment on this motion? All right, I see no public comment on this motion. All directors who are in favor of this motion, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, please say no. And this motion passes 7-0-0-0. I'd like to move on to our public comment period. At this time, any member of the public may speak on matters within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board of directors that are not on the agenda. The board will not take action on any item not on the agenda except as provided by law. And I'm expecting that there might be more public comment than we usually have at this point. So in order to share voices, I will be having a 3-minute time limit for public comment, just so everyone is aware. So everyone who's present and wishes to speak has the same and fair time to do so. Is there any public comment at this time?
No one's raised.
It's on the agenda.
Nope, yeah, no one's on general public comment right now.
Okay. I'd like to move on to our discussion and action items. Item 4.1, Isla Vista Bluff Safety.
I can introduce the staff report just to get us started. So there's been historical issues with the bluffs and tragic incidents on both public and private properties over the last 30 years. From our record, from our research and records, we were able to find 13 people who've tragically passed and more who've fallen and had life-altering injuries. In January, the IVCSD board passed a letter to the county, Joint County Supervisor CAPS, emphasizing the importance of amending the coastal zoning ordinance to make it easier to have fences higher than 6 feet on bluff top properties. And we also in January launched a education campaign on cliff and bluff safety. Also wanted to note that the county already has a bluff erosion policy that's more on structural safety of properties with annual inspections. IVCSD does not own, manage, or have oversight over any bluff top properties. So these are recommendations that staff can pursue to advocate for with decision makers. And some are things IVCSD can do itself, like education. Like I mentioned, we worked with UCSB and ASUCSB to conduct a campaign in winter 2023 on bluff top safety that did reach thousands of residents and visitors. We did websites, emails, door-to-door, brochures, everything we could think of to get the information out. And on Deltopia in April, we also funded restrooms, public restrooms, to be as close to DP as possible. We were working on DP, we weren't approved for that, but we got them onto Sabado and in the loop to have public restroom opportunities. And AS has tried to do the same for at least 10 years. So that's just the background, and based on our conversations with Supervisor Caps in the last week, we've outlined various areas where we could pursue some short-term, some mid-term, some longer term. So we wanted to run these by the board to see what we would support getting behind. Some we would end up being responsible for, like education. Some we would be writing a letter of support. Some would be just involved in the messaging. But they first the coastal zoning ordinance, which we had originally said allowed for higher than 6 feet, but we said maybe we should make it required to be more than 6 feet. It's that was the January letter was making it allowed for. Then we discussed recently, maybe it should be required instead. Audiovisual warnings was something we discussed in our meeting last week with our supervisor, like either lights or like a noise that warns people they're getting close to the edge. Something our ad hoc committee with the foot patrol discussed today is updating the social host ordinance to make parties, you can shut down a party if people are going over the fence and onto the cliff edge. So that's something that had support from all groups that were at the meeting today. More blatant signage, more enhanced signage on the cliffs, continuing education and having more regular education between the university, the college, and community partners. Another one that's been brought up to our attention has been to temporarily reduce the fine structure for non-compliance with the coastal zoning ordinance, so that if somebody went higher than 6 feet, that they would be fined less than what they're currently being fined. And having the county, having the county parks have their fence heights raised and introducing natural barriers like bushes to prevent access to the cliff edge. In the long term, bluff management plan, a more comprehensive plan for the bluffs. And what's next on our agenda is expanding public restrooms in Isla Vista. And then finally, something we've been talking about since January during the education campaign is installing a memorial somewhere that memorializes the people who died and educates the community. So this is where our conversations have been between IVCSD and partners and our county supervisor. And we wanted to bring these to the board to see what the board would have us support moving forward to get done.
I thank you very much for that detailed background and history. Do any directors at this point have questions they'd like to ask? Director Freeman.
Sounds like you might have gone into some detailed discussions with the county, with our supervisor, with relation to these alarms. Can you speak more about how these alarms might work?
I don't think we went into detailed discussions. We just said these are
All
it's an idea of something we can do. So it's not much more than that, just lights or alarms.
And would that have to be like in collaboration with the Russian Park District because it's their property?
Most of the parks on DP are county owned.
Oh,
Almost all of them, except two. The square acre is county owned, mostly county.
I have a
Yes.
question, but I don't know if you can answer it.
I'll try.
I wanted to know about the DP houses that are on the bluffs overlooking the ocean. When you're down on the beach and you look up, there's some overhang of some of the decks. And is that portion of the decks, are those decks off limits to the residents? Or you may not know,
Well,
but
I have
this is something I've been thinking
I
about.
have part of an answer, and
Okay.
I learned more today at our work group meeting with the lieutenant. So there are annual inspections of the safety of those decks and what's going on there. They have to cut back if the report comes back in a bad way, they have to cut back the house or move the fence in. Being on the other side of the fence then is not allowed, because the fence is where the studies have shown people have to stop being. What we learned today is that those studies are done, like the annual inspections are done probably on what they're designed to load too. Is it designed for 20 people to be on there? So that's what they're inspecting for. We know that there's almost hundreds of people sometimes on some of those decks. So I don't think they're doing inspections based on the structural integrity of having 200 people on there. They're doing it for whatever it was designed for, and they're cutting back if they need to cut back. And being on the other side of the fence, if that social host ordinance update passes, would become an offense to shut down a party, but I don't think it's a criminal offense to be on the other side of the fence.
Well, in some of the cases, on the other side of the fence is 40 foot down,
Yeah.
right? So on some of those decks, there are small fences, maybe 3 feet, right? Are you thinking, is this 6 foot? Are you thinking of that's only on public property, or is that it's both? So it'd be public and private requirement of 6 feet?
At least. I mean, right now, the way the law works is if you want less than 6 feet, you have to get a coastal development permit. If you want higher, you have to get a minor conditional use. And what our letter in January said that higher than 6 feet should have the less red tape, the coastal development one. We said it should make it so it's easier. So if a private property owner wanted to go to 7 feet, then they would have a less red tape to do that. But now our discussions are more on it should be required to have 7 feet or 8 feet or higher than 6. It's kind of a different direction.
Okay, so just let me make sure I understand. So, what we would like to see, IVCSD,
Yeah.
or this is one of the
What we're-
proposals,
yeah.
is to have 6 feet or more of fencing along private decks as well as public county-owned property.
Yes, that's
Awesome.
what we're saying.
Okay, that's great.
Required instead of allowable.
Required, yeah.
Instead of allowed. And one thing we learned is that the fence at Walter Capps Park, because I asked the county parks director, I'm like, hey, if you're reinstalling the fence because there's been erosion there, a lot of erosion actually. If you're reinstalling the fence, can you make it a little taller? Because I think it's only 5 feet or so right now. He said he only has a coastal development permit for whatever height it is now.
Okay.
Director Freeman.
Well, one thing I would like to see is more as almost as a community member than as directly here today as a board member for things that we can do is kind of a better post-mortem analysis of what has occurred at each of these falls. Because we talk about there's been a number of falls, but like right now, I'm not sure how many of them were on private property versus public property. I'm not certain offhand how many of them were off a balcony versus off the edge of a cliff. I think it would be useful to know how many of them occurred when there was a fence of the playpen fence versus when there was no fence, or if the fence collapsed underneath the person, which is an entirely different problem. We've got situations where the cliffs are eroding under the fences. Has anyone fallen under the fence currently? I'm not certain actually. I know there are places where they could have. And that would affect that, like my interests in what it is the solutions are, because we tend to like throw everything at the wall as far as like here's all the things you could possibly do. I mean, we can klaxons, alarms, like giant fences, but I'm not certain like which of these things would have helped which of the specific falls that we have. I'm not saying that none of these are useful. Some of these might be extremely useful, but I wish I could feel better targeting some of these things by going through and doing that kind of post-mortem analysis of like, well, this fall was on a private property off of the edge of a balcony, and it was because there were so many people at a party that somebody got shoved off. Versus a different situation, which might seem very similar, where they fell off the balcony, but there were only 3 people there, and this person was just extremely excited about the idea of jumping off because they were high on something. But there are all sorts of different ways we can analyze all the different things, and some of them lead to different things that would be more effective to solving those specific problems. And again, I'm not certain though if that's something that we should do. Maybe it is something that we should do, but it's certainly something that I would like to see as a community member the county be doing before we jump into a lot of different possible.
Let me just tell you our experience, so just to even get the names and how many people have fallen and died was very difficult. Like, I don't even know if that information exists.
Yeah.
Like, that's that even for this one that just happened where there were witnesses, there's no clear story. So I don't know if it's possible. I don't know if that information can be sourced. And usually if it happens 11 p.m., there's just not good knowledge of what's going on then. So that's the hard part. I mean, we can try to do that. We already at least have a structure to go off of. We know at least the 13 that have happened, but it was hard to even get the names. Like, we were the first ones to ever do that. So I don't know if that information exists. And what I do know, one last thing, is the coroner's office does do an investigation. I don't know how detailed they get and how into the details of the fence or not the fence and all that.
One is not, thankfully, not a story that ends in a fall, but one story that I have related to the edge of the cliff is that there's one time about 2 years ago, I was walking along UCSD property. I was on the area by Manzanita where they have them. And I was sitting at one of the benches where there's one of the shorter fences, and a student walks by and she's interested in the view. And so what she does is she climbs to the other side of the fence and sits on the other side of the fence. And it seemed like a very natural thing for her to do, is to go sit on the other side of the fence. I started to wonder how many times has she done this? And
Yeah.
trying to like, and so I can definitely see situations where there are things that are going on with like the fencing that could be changed or information things. But then I also wonder how many of the falls were due to somebody doing that activity versus doing some other kind of activity related to it. So yeah, and so that's my high level commentary on the myriad list of things that are possible.
Thank you for those clarifying questions and conversation. At this point, I'd like to open this item up to the public. If there's any public comment on this particular agenda item, please raise your hand and please identify yourself and then share your comments. Yes, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Janet Stitch. I'm a long-term resident here. I live on Del Playa. And first of all, thank you guys for addressing this. I think it's really important. But I'm just going to say one thing really quickly, which you all know, and it's like it's about the integrity of the bluff. So if you have a piece of marble, which is soft rock, and you drill a hole here, 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 and here on the marble, all you have to do is just hit it and it falls off. That's exactly what happens on the bluff with the type of geological earth that it has. And so you can see at the numerous parks how the fences fall down. So for somebody who lives on the bluff, the integrity of the bluff is very important, you know, for everybody. And having solutions that enhance the bluff retreating, I think need to be looked at, you know, assessed. So at the end of DP, there are two areas where there's vegetation on the bluff. And the vegetation is at least 4 feet wide and 4 feet high. And nobody is going to climb over that to sit on the other edge. Somebody can fall into it and they won't go over the edge. It has roots, so it's holding the bluff together and preventing erosion. So as I say, there are two areas on the end of DP where they use that, and the students just don't go near it, don't go over it. It's a good barrier. It's not a fence that you can walk up to. So I highly urge you to consider that. It takes a little while to grow. It could be a UCSD program, you know, to do it on the bluff, and then they're responsible for redoing it. It would be a great project. I think it would take maybe a couple of years for it to be effective, but it would be a good solution. If you're not willing to do that, then I think if it's absolutely necessary to put fences in, I would plant vegetation on the other side of the fence. So when the fence falls into the ocean, now you've got your vegetative wall, which I'm telling you it really works. And the other thing that I wanted to say, it's like there have been numerous falls where there is already a fence. So it makes you wonder, I mean, how tall are we going to make the fences? You have a 7-foot fence, all of a sudden it feels kind of like a jail. We're being jailed from the ocean. We're being jailed from the view. It's, you know, you can't really interact with the view because you've got a 7-foot fence. So that's the only other thing that I worry about is, you know, I want safety, but I also want to be smart about it as far as how it affects how people interact with the nature of the ocean and, you know, the security of the bluff. So thank you for listening.
Thank you for those comments.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, thanks. It's good to be here. I just came from our Santa Maria because I wanted to be here for our board hearing, and I did open our meeting with a paying honor to Benny's life. And anything I say here will pale in comparison to what should have happened and could have happened for this young person to live their life the way that we deserve. So I just want to acknowledge that, because talk about the meetings we have and things I'm working on, but it just feels like, okay. I'm devastated, and I want to thank you all for really leading not entirely the education on this, not just this year, but years prior. And I'm your partner. I can just speak briefly to the conversation that Jonathan talked about. We are moving forward on all of these. I'm very supportive of all of the things listed, but I want to hear how this body feels about each one, and make sure that we're in partnership moving forward. But I'm motivated. I'm already meeting with the various department heads. I've already met with our coastal commissioner. I have an urgency about this, that the porta potty's there because our office ordered it. I know it's a small token, but I just thought it was important to get it there immediately. We have to do more, but it's there symbolically, if anything else. And so I just want to convey that I'm here to listen and sort of help prioritize, but also know that I am someone who acts with a sense of passion and impatience, and I have that about this, and I will do whatever I can. It doesn't bring him back. And I'm going to my meetings with him, with this image, because I mean, you think about, like, okay, the coastal ordinance, who on the coastal commission is not human, that would not make the change? I can't fathom that person who wouldn't feel compelled to make sure that we, certainly they have their rules for in general when it comes to coastal views and et cetera. But when you have 13 deaths that have happened in a concentrated area over a fairly relatively concentrated time, you do things and you make exceptions to rules. That's what they're there for. So I'll listen, and I'm grateful to hear, but the sort of answer Director Freeman's, a couple of his questions, we don't know yet about this one. There's conflicting reports even where it happened. Law enforcement seems to believe it was on the private property. That owner seems to think it was in the county park. So, hopefully we'll get more answers, and I appreciate the nature of your questions. We don't know yet. And so we have to kind of look at all options. And you raised another good question that I wanted to talk about, but
Alarms.
oh yeah, so that was just from pure brainstorming from non-technical people. But the thought being, okay, there's technology, right? You have motion sensor lights that have been around for quite a while now. Like things like, what if there's a motion sensor alarm if someone's too close? This was just purely brainstorming, Jonathan and I and others, Spencer, from non-technical people that should not be making these decisions about the best, that sort of to your point about shrubbery. I mean, there's hostile shrubbery we're learning about that could stop people. So why not employ these things? I know that, up the 154, that unfortunate bridge where a lot of people take their own lives, there's different type of fencing that's impossible to climb. I appreciate Spencer has shared pictures of plexiglass down in other parts of the coast where there's dangerous because of, I think, railroads or whatnot. So there's technical answers to these challenges, and it's just up to us to find them and be motivated to push ahead. So that's what I'm here to convey. And I can also answer any questions as this conversation goes. Thank you.
Thank you very much for being here. Thank you for those comments. I can see on Zoom we have a hand raised from Mr. John Trent. Please go ahead and speak.
Yeah, thank you. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Oh, perfect. First, I just wanted to say, God bless you guys for doing this. I'm sorry, I'm kind of getting emotional. I'll hold try to hold my emotions back. But Laura, the picture that you're holding is Benny. I've known Benny since he was 8 years old. He's my son's best friend. And it's a tragic loss to our community and to our town and the family. And what I want you guys to realize, and this kind of goes with some of the comments that I've heard recently, is these kind of tragic accidents can be names on a list. you can look at them and say, oh, yeah, they had bad behavior. They were behaving like, these party animals, or they were drunk, or they were high, or you can dismiss all of this very easily by just behavior. But what I want you guys to focus on, just like the last individual who spoke, IV has a problem. It's got an erosion issue. Those cliffs are falling in the ocean. It's a hazard. Everybody knows it. It's a hidden, I don't know why more people aren't aware of this public safety issue. Eventually those houses are going to fall in the ocean. And that's just geological proof. And people have known about that for 30 years. And we just keep pushing the can down the road. So what I would love to see is if the community, for you guys, if you guys can get your passions together, realize that this is a climate change issue. This is an issue with those cliffs. Those cliffs are going to keep falling, keep eroding, and they're going to fall off in big chunks. And I'm scared because we have an El Nino coming this year. We could get large chunks of rain hitting that cliff. And next thing you know, one of those houses or those patios fall in the ocean. And what if you had a big party there and you got 14, 20 people that are dead on the bottom of the cliff? I mean, that's just awful. So nobody wants that. So as you guys are doing your communication around public safety, please urge people just to stay away from the cliffs in general. Like the people that live in the homes, they need to be aware that they're putting their lives at risk just by renting those apartments. They need to, maybe there's a waiver that they can sign when they're trying to get the apartment to say, hey, you're aware that this thing could fall in the ocean at any moment. There's just, I just want you guys to remember that these are people, these are lives, these are your brothers, these are your sisters. The whole world was in front of them. I mean, just going through some of these records and looking at these names, Alessandro, from 2018, Cassin Albrando, I mean, Spencer's friend. I mean, these are people that all have family and all have loved ones that are still dying to this day. So, Noah Crum's mom, I mean, my goodness, she's been fighting this thing for how long? 13 years, and still she can't get anything done. It's ridiculous. I mean, this is absolutely crazy. So something has to be done, whether that's higher fencing, whether that's alarms, whether that is, who knows, but something has to be done. And I actually like the idea of higher fencing. I don't know if 7 feet is appropriate. That seems awfully high. I think you could probably get away with 6 feet. I think 6 feet would be just fine. I think you could put plexiglass out there, would be just fine. I also think that the residents that live in those homes need to be aware that they are living and putting their lives in danger by renting those houses, because every year new students come in and they have no idea of the dangers. And I know it's hard, and I know you guys are doing your best to communicate it, but that should be something that I think this board should consider. And I appreciate your time. And Laura, I listened to the meeting this morning, and I just wanted to applaud you. You did a fantastic job just bringing the awareness to the board. And I would love to see, or I'd love to know when this will be an agenda item on the Santa Barbara County Board. And with that, I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those comments. I see we have a hand raised from Mr. Scott Ball. Please speak.
Hi, I'm Scott Ball. I'm a longtime community member. I live on Sabato Tarde, and I can't really follow up with the impassioned or the like direct connection that John just spoke to the recent tragedy. I do want to just really acknowledge, I'm sorry for your loss, John, and your community's loss. It really is a tragedy. And I guess what I want to speak to is like, I don't know where I fall on the fencing issue, like whether we should extend things, how we should go about it, really. I really appreciated Jay's thoughts about taking a holistic kind of assessment of things before we jump into throwing like everything that we could possibly do at the issue. Part of it is like as John and as Janet earlier were talking about the bluff erosion, adding fences in, like I see a lot of those fences that do fall over. I definitely worry that approaching fencing in the wrong way could contribute further to the bluff erosion. I worry that the plexiglass, like I guess after a misty night, if you get in a car and you look out the windshield, like it's all just like you can't see out of it, right? Like that plexiglass isn't gonna. I'm not confident that it's gonna be like a very aesthetic type of fencing. The bushes, like you can't see through them as much as a fence, so maybe that's not the right solution either. I'm not really sure. I guess I'm just urging that whatever solutions are put forward, that we really think holistically about everything, like every aspect of what they're impacting and their effectiveness altogether. Because like it's easy to say like, oh, we could do plexiglass and it would be see-through and it wouldn't affect the view, but like that's definitely not true. Like plexiglass is a lens and it also just gets dirty. So I guess that's really where my comments come from, is just like I would really appreciate if whatever solutions we end up suggesting to the county, that we think very carefully about how they impact our natural environment here, because that is one of the things that makes this place really magical. So that's all I've really got.
All right, thank you for those comments. I see no further public comment at this time, so I'll bring the conversation back to our board. Do any board members want to begin their commentary or have further questions? Director Brand.
Well, I really want to thank Mr. Trent for being here, and I'm so deeply sorry for your loss. I have two younger brothers, and they're the same age as Benny, and it's just really hard to imagine the anguish and the hurt that you're all feeling right now. It's been really emotional for me to see the communications from many family and family friends that we've all been receiving about what a beautiful life Benny led, and how he really promoted joy around all that he came into contact with. When we visited the site, Laura and I had the chance to meet another one of his childhood friends. It's like we keep meeting more and more friends of Benny, and I think that although I never met him, it really speaks to the type of person that he was. And I really appreciate that this entire community of people around him has really come together to try to take what is the most challenging thing that can happen to anyone and try to turn it into change. Because I really think that that's all that you can do in a time like this, I guess you could say. And the many public comments that we've heard, there's one thing that I think everyone has spoken to, is that there's really no silver bullet here. That's the reason that the list is long, because we don't know what will work. But I really appreciate the urgency that you've expressed, Supervisor Capps, that something needs to happen. And I know when we visited the site, we spoke with the property owner that owns most of the residential properties on DP, and he told us that he would install the higher plexiglass fencing as soon as possible if he was allowed to. And that to me is a really significant thing. The speakers that have spoken, you're right, it probably won't prevent everything. I really wish that we could all, I think we all wish that we could be here today and say that we know for certain that this will be the last person that will lose their life this way. But the reality is, as you've spoken to, Mr. Trent, these bluffs by their nature are dangerous places, and they're places where erosion is occurring. And so I support the list. I want to add in a piece of correspondence that I found particularly valuable with one of Benny's family friends named Abby, who is a 15-year-old student in the Ojai Valley, who I think has been in touch with everyone on the board. And one of her suggestions that I do think is worth an investigation is some sort of netting as well, for if people were to go over the bluff, that they would have their fall broken. I think this has been a good exercise because it's allowed us to see all of the different possible solutions. And I know that Supervisor Capps is very committed to investigating all these seriously. And I think we all as a board are very committed to not just having this be about advocacy for us, but also about what we can do right in the here and now to try to mitigate these opportunities for people to get hurt. And we'll do that with the next agenda item with bathrooms. But I want to thank staff and everyone for putting this together. And really just again say to Mr. Trent and anyone else who is here or is watching this that was touched by Benny, I'm truly very sorry for your loss.
Thank you for that.
Thank you for those comments, Director Brandt. Do any other directors have comments they'd like to make? Director Topla.
I am not really understanding or familiar with the process by which the Del Payas properties are evaluated annually, but it does seem that if they're looking at loads on a balcony of 15 students, and we can see from the pictures that that is nowhere near what actual loads they're handling, then perhaps those inspections need to change their algorithms about how they look at things.
Yeah, on the staff report, I linked to the county webpage on their bluff policy, and it includes the ordinance and the amendments and actually even the comments that led to its creation. But yeah, I mean, we would have to get the county planning department to want to have that change.
And then I wonder if annually is enough.
They do annually, plus if any major event happens, like an earthquake or big storm. So but yeah, that's how.
And I mean, just given their workload and backlog, those are kind of random events that you would have to be able to respond to quickly. I just wonder if it wouldn't make more sense to actually schedule more than one a year so that it was more integrated into workload.
I'll write that down.
Makes sense.
And to bring up another thing that we discussed in our working group with, for IVCSD with a property owner today, it seems that for those inspections, it's also very hard to get an engineer to come out to inspect your property. And like even scheduling that once a year seems to be a challenge for some properties. And so making sure that those are widely available when we need them to conduct like safe inspections is super important.
I think you said there's 2 engineers in town who do the work.
Yeah.
In the county.
Wow.
Director Freeman.
So on the note of the different requirements for the balconies, that was something that also had come to my mind when I heard that come up during discussion earlier. It was actually the thought that made me start to question what I knew about the falls that we were trying to solve, because I started to think, I kind of remember maybe 8 years ago that there was a balcony that actually collapsed during a party with a number of people on it. But then I couldn't remember if that contributed any falls to the ones that we're trying to solve today.
It was like 30 feet away from the cliff.
30 feet away.
It was a big fall of a balcony onto the deck, but it was very far from the wall.
I sometimes think that there are things that we might end up getting excited by, or the things that might seem like they are obvious ways of addressing issues that we hear about. But then the question is that we're trying to stop more deaths, like these 13 deaths that have occurred, or the 13 deaths and subsequent and further injuries, the number of falls, trying to stop these falls that have occurred, and trying to figure out how to do that, making certain that we actually address the problems that are occurring. And so I also would be very supportive of increased requirements on the construction of balconies and more often analysis, et cetera. But I don't want necessarily to be like, oh, and then we feel like we're doing something about the falls if that hasn't actually contributed to any of the falls. So.
And that's a fair point, but I think like as the bluff erosion continues, it's just more and more likely that that will be a cause of deaths and falls, right? Especially like as we see more of the balconies becoming undercut. And so I feel like, you know, there are definitely other solutions that we should be looking at that are more geared toward falls specifically, but I do think that this is a really important aspect of the issue because it's only going to get worse.
And just visually, you look at a lot of those balconies and it's just shocking. It just seems like they shouldn't be there. They just shouldn't be there. It just seems like it blows your mind that they are there.
I agree. I think they've only gotten consistently worse. Like I know there are a lot of publicized pictures of like Ivy from like 20 and 40 years ago. You can see like the undersides of the houses. And at the very least, we can begin to like start taking a look at that and trying to get a more accurate estimate of what is actually safe to be on that balcony or even not safe on that balcony, more importantly.
I just want to acknowledge Spencer. I just really appreciate what you said to start off the conversation today. I just wanted to add to it, but I can't say as much as you did because it was so beautifully said. But I just wanted to just acknowledge that we have gotten a number of letters, really beautiful letters written about this young man, and it's just so sad to see someone so young lose their life so in such a terrible way. And when people come to DP for whatever reason, whether they live here or they visit here, they shouldn't have to worry that coming to DP is going to end in death. That's the bottom line. And I think all of our agencies have a responsibility to be working together to proactively look at the risk. We are going to be Monday morning quarterbacking this forever if we don't take action. It's just what you all said. It's like we can see it, and sometimes it takes a super tragic event to bring people together to take the bold steps. And I just want to just acknowledge you, Supervisor Capps, that sometimes bad things happen, but it's leaders that step forward and turn something into it. And I just really appreciate your leadership. And I just would like to say that we can talk about bushes and heights of fence and different materials, but what we really need to do is think about the people that have died and the people that could die if we don't take action. And we have a responsibility, all of us. So I really want to commend all the work that's been done to this point. And I really want to make sure that we are being proactive and that we're not letting the little opposition get in the way. Just like move forward. We have to move forward. We have to be bold. We have to be courageous, and we have to think about the greater good. So I hope that we can do that. I really like the idea of kind of bringing a small working group together because there are a lot of agency overlaps here. And we know when you get agencies overlapping, like things get mired down and things don't happen. So I would just think that might be a good idea to establish a working group. I think, we need deterrents, and whatever those deterrents are, we need them. I love the idea of a memorial. I think a memorial is an amazing tribute to people whose lives were cut short, but it's also a deterrent to people who are out on the bluffs, right? And I think that could be something really positive. I also wonder, and I'm just going to say this, even though I'm here as UCSB representative, but why can't we prevent parties at all on balconies facing the ocean? Like, is that I
have an answer. So we asked today at
Yeah.
our working group meeting about the social host ordinance and whether we can have overloaded balconies be a one and done, shut down a party. And essentially the answer was that the only 2 firefighters in the county are able to make that determination that a balcony is overloaded. And so the lieutenant said he would, and they're not gonna come to IV on a Friday night. And so the lieutenant said he's looking to maybe if some of his deputies can get trained on the same, whatever those firefighters are trained on, so that they can make the determination.
Yeah, I just think that once you put together passionate, committed people, you're gonna get creative ideas, and I'm just really excited by, not excited, I'm inspired by all the work that people are doing so far, and I hope that we can continue the momentum, and I just want to acknowledge people that have died. You know, it's our responsibility to do more, and I appreciate where we are tonight.
Thank you for those comments. I wanted to respond to some of the comments that I heard so far, but I see that we have a new guest in the Zoom room, so I want to invite Mr. Ethan Bertrand to speak, please.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, everyone. I just want to thank the board for all of the items and ideas that you're discussing tonight in regard to this issue. Thanks Supervisor Capps as well for her leadership on this. This has plagued our community for a long time, and in some ways there has been progress made. More people know about the safety issue. There have been steps taken by property owners of the year to try to make things a little bit safer, but still we have this incredible issue, and our community members are still getting seriously hurt at best and at worst dying. And it's definitely not something that we can continue to just let happen. So I think a number of the proposed action areas that you've listed in your staff report are great for you to continue to look into and advocate for. I heard Director Deschler speak about the issue of parties, and I definitely think that's an area we need to lean harder into. What strikes me is that a lot of the properties on the ocean side of Del Playa Drive are owned by some of the same property companies. And while there is absolutely a role for government to play in regulating the fence height and in strengthening ordinances, there is also a role for property owners to play. And I just think about the numerous leases I've signed over my years in Isla Vista, where oftentimes my landlord has stipulations for, hey, you cannot have parties outside in these areas, or you cannot have parties that get out of control. And it talks about what the expectations of the landlords are. And I do think it's really important for the property owners to come up with those expectations, to lay them out in their leases as is permitted by law, and then to enforce them. There's a role for government to play, and a very active role at that, but I am really thinking that we need our property owners to step up too. So thank you all for your work on this. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for those comments. At this point, I'd like to go back to the board. Director Freeman.
So I guess something that I want to come back to and stress in a different way is that when you try to do something, you end up, I mean, sure, we can analyze financial costs, but you know, we're talking about people's lives here, right? So that's not the only cost though we can analyze. We can also analyze the political capital and the social goodwill that we're able to actually extend towards something. So for example, let's say that we decided here that, you know, one thing that we're very excited to do is to get rid of all the parties that are occurring on balconies by empowering the police department to be able to shut down parties more often using social host ordinance. And the way we're going to also try to do that, to get that advocacy out there and to change the liability, is we're going to push liability and we're going to push requirements onto landlords. Now we've got a bunch of students and a bunch of landlords who are upset about the thing that we're doing because we're changing a bunch of stuff. And next week, we're going to be going back to them saying, and now we want a bigger fence because we determined that that fence is going to protect somebody and you're going to have to put that fence in your property. And now we've got people that are maybe okay with the fence, or maybe in some cases not okay with that fence. And the question is how much can we push them until they stop doing the things that we want them to do? And so I would want to, before we get excited about things, before we start talking about pushing to prioritize them, put these like in a list, and like, sorry, like in a like not there in a list, like in a numerical list, like put them in an ordered list, and try to figure out that, like, if we determine, for example, that the thing that's going to actually save the most lives and stop the most falls is increased fences. I don't want us sitting around talking about how to push all of the no party agenda on people. I want us focusing on the fence things. We're going to start getting pushback on some of these things. And I am really hesitant to start jumping into specifics on some of this stuff right now. What I would love to have happen is I would love to have a very smart person, preferably somebody at the county, stare at it. Well, our staff is already well overloaded often, and we're currently running short on a lot of ways. We're constantly trying to hire people to work on this. But I would love to see somebody stare at this problem, particularly it is a lot of county property, a lot of county ordinances, and a lot of county issues are going on. I'd love to see somebody very smart at the county stare at this problem and actually like try to figure this out. And I think a lot of the inaction that people might be thinking about relating to this isn't necessarily inaction that no one wanted to do anything. It was inaction from the perspective of, well, we need to figure out what is actually a good thing to do. And I think that is something that somebody can do. I do not necessarily feel, certainly not today. I'm not certain if I ever will, but certainly not today. I do not feel like I could look at this list and say, I would like Jonathan to specifically go and demand that people do items number 3, 5, 7. And because I could easily see arguments, I've heard arguments today, why some of these things might even be actively harmful. Like if there was an interesting argument relating to if you put in thicker, bigger, heavier fencing, that will cause further bluff erosion and potentially further danger. And so I'm interested in having somebody who really knows fences and really knows some of these things look at this list and tell me, no, the thing you want to do is item number 4. Item number 4 is the thing that's actually going to solve this problem, as opposed to a bunch of non-experts, admittedly in some cases non-experts, staring at like how we do audio warnings, and we're not even certain how those alarms work. I would like to see somebody, an actual expert, come in here and tell us the way you stop somebody jumping off a cliff, or the way you stop somebody falling off a cliff, or the way you stop a cliff falling out from underneath somebody is to do one of these items. So I'm very excited. I want to be clear. I am very supportive of doing stuff and potentially allocating resources and time. And I would love to have a discussion where we could bring in an expert, or I would love to see the county talk to experts. I would love to see something get done. But I want to be clear that I'm not certain what it is that we're trying to do today as far as what was agendized on this thing. The wording on it was that we're going to recommend next steps to the county. I do not feel comfortable right now recommending to the county your next step is to put in a fence. I am not certain that I'm comfortable today saying your next step is to put in a bush. But I do say your next step is to come back next week and tell me which one of these things should happen, by having an expert figure out those things. And you don't necessarily have to tell me at that point, you can just do it. But
Thank you for those comments. Director Brandt.
Yeah, I just want to remind everyone on the board that as far as I think we're all aware, Isla Vista, well, we all know that we're a very unique community. But one way that we're particularly unique is that I don't think we've found any other area in California where you've got high density housing on the edge of a bluff that's eroded.
Yeah.
So I totally am with you about experts. Let's bring them in. They probably don't exist because this is a very specialized, specific problem that we have in our community. We're going to be trailblazing the way with anything that we come up with. And I think what Director Dusher said is really important. We don't have the luxury to try to Monday morning quarterback things. We need to take action.
Yes, Mr. Tucker.
I also would just like to say that it seems like the landlords on Del Playa have a very important role to play. And if it is standard in Isla Vista rental contracts to have all these restrictions on what you can do in the property and no one is enforcing it, that seems like a big problem. And we put a lot of things off into law enforcement and government, but why can't the landlords have their own lease police and, hire somebody who goes around at night and just looks at all the apartments and sees who's in compliance with the lease and who's not? And, if they took a more active role in managing what goes on their properties, I think that could make a really huge difference.
Yes.
While I agree with Carrie and I would love to see that happen, I just think that a lot of landlords within IB, especially the ones who own property on like left side Del Playa, are just not that involved with their properties. Like I've rented from one of these rental companies before and like they won't even come and fix like a normal
That's so
complaint,
true.
you know? Like they, like as much as I would love to see that happen,
Yeah.
I do not see like landlords in IB taking responsibility in that way.
Yes.
And I think that Supervisor Capps told me this, that one of the properties on DP, they did have a lease that their parents signed and they signed that was very clear on what they could and couldn't do in their property with regards to parties and that kind of thing. That doesn't help visitors, right? It doesn't help, visitors don't know what the lease policy says on a Saturday night, right? And that's the problem. I mean, that's a big problem. The residents might be aware of it, but visitors aren't aware. They're not aware, especially if they come in at night.
Well,
You know,
they
if somebody
would be if the
comes-
lease police were there, tell them.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
some property owners have on some days hired security and put up fences for like Deltopia.
Yeah, right.
They've done it sometimes for some cases, so it's like an RA essentially, like you file.
Well, it seems to me like they have pretty large liability potentially, that it might make a lot of sense for them to enforce standards that become more the norm.
Okay.
Looking at the social host ordinance, it does seem that like when a balcony is overloaded or like party is held and like if somebody were in violation of social host in a way that would like accrue them a fine, it does seem that first goes to the tenants and secondly to the landlords. Like it's not usually, yes, there's liability definitely around like these things collapsing, but like in terms of like foot patrol enforcing things, it does seem that usually falls on the tenants. And then I had a question for you. What was the thing that Tesla was talking about today where like they can observe things and then report them to landlord?
The Penn report.
Yeah.
Which, for people who remember, the Penn report was when law enforcement used to compile a list of properties that had things happen at them, like a fight or a huge party. They used to submit that to the property owners and then they stopped because there were privacy concerns, but they're gonna start it again without the privacy concerns. No names and birth dates included, but they'll say, oh, at this address on DP, there was X, Y, and Z happening. They won't mention the tenants or who. So that's coming back. And the property owner who was there from Meridian is pretty happy to learn that it's coming back.
Well, I want to share some comments. I'm really thankful for all of our guests who have come to our meeting today. I want to be thankful to the folks who have been a part of the conversation in the last week or so outside of public meetings, the effort of our staff to put together this report. And I want to be thankful to the people who have written us letters and emailed us their concerns and their worries and their narratives. And especially Mr. John Trent coming here and sharing a very personal story. When I think about Isla Vista and I think about its character and its nature, I think very firmly about storytelling and about how Isla Vista has certain stories that you can never, ever escape. People will call certain dormitories FT for the end of time. People will tell us that you cannot sit on a curb till the end of time. And we will have these things permanently etched in the Isla Vista brain and memory. And somehow we have not etched into the permanent Isla Vista brain and memory the danger of the bluffs. For long-term residents, people like myself, and for new residents, we have not made this clear. When I look at our list, I'm glad that our list is long and has many options because Isla Vista has seen solutions get named, but we haven't seen every solution attempted. And so I think we have to have a long and intense list in order to attempt different solutions. I think it's important to weight different solutions as more effective than others, and we don't have that information right now, but I think it is possible to get that information, to get that knowledge, and to share that widely with neighbors, with board members, with county leaders, with everyone. When I hear the story about how this was a guest to Isla Vista, and this is the reputation that Isla Vista has outside of Isla Vista, But those of us who live in Isla Vista go on our merry way and forget that this happens is a problem. We should be leaders and defenders of our community. We should be, real leaders for guests, not just us board members, but everyone who lives here. When you invite a guest to Isla Vista, they shouldn't leave with a scar or any kind of loss. I think it's very important that we focus on the fact that these are humans and there is a story behind them, and that every one of these losses, whether it wasn't their life or it is their life, those people never forget. Those 13 families and possibly more will never forget this. But we walk around Isla Vista, myself included, walking right up to the bluff and not realizing for a couple of years in a row that, hey, people do harm themselves here, and not on purpose, but it happens. So I want everyone to be thinking about the fact that we can have so many things that are not true about Isla Vista pervade our mentality and pervade our understanding of Isla Vista. And some of these things that are very tragically true do not pervade our understanding of Isla Vista. That's a huge problem. We have to bring truth into the light so everyone who comes and visits knows, and everyone who calls this place home knows. It's really just, it's really heartbreaking, and I can't speak in a more compassionate way than I'm trying to. I look at this list, and none of these things are more important than someone's life. None of these items are more important than someone's comfort and safety. So I'm in support of pursuing each of these items, and I know that we'll have a better understanding of which ones are more important than others. I'm extremely supportive of the memorial idea. Just the other day, since the fall, since the passing, I was standing at the edge of West Campus open space where many people go to look at the sunset, and the idea of views was discussed here. But I heard a group of very clearly new Isla Vista residents thinking aloud, looking at the cracks in the ground. I wonder if these fall apart at any given point. I wonder if it's safe here. And the group of 5 or 6, young students sat at the edge, and they got up and they walked away. And they probably don't know that somebody just recently passed from the same risk they took just then. So I think it's very important that we keep this story present in all of our hearts and all of our minds. Not just this story, but the story of Isla Vista, the story of tragedy. This place is amazing. I love it. It's made my life so much better. But as all these board members here have heard, not everyone gets that same chance. And that's what motivates me when I come to these meetings, is that other people in the future get the same chance that I have to call this place a lovely, wonderful place. And right now, we can't say that for everyone. Right now, we have people anguishing over Isla Vista and this Isla Vista problem. So I am very much supportive of, taking the measures, taking the effort to find a right priority list of solutions. But I think that all of these will have use. All of these will improve safety for guests and for Isla Vistans alike. So I'm really thankful that we have this list of key points. I'm really thankful that it's not just one thing. And I understand that there is no real silver bullet, but I'm glad that we have more than one thing to try, more than one effort to try. Are there any other comments at this time?
Again, I just want to say thank you guys so much. God bless you. And, I think doing nothing is not an option. I honestly do. So thank you all. I sincerely appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. I want to make sure that all board members feel like they got to share and discuss this item before we move on. I want to make sure that
There's another public comment from Mark.
Okay. Mark, if you have a public comment, please share with us.
Testing, 1, 2, 3. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Apologies. A lot of meetings happened at once. Yeah, I just want to say that, and apologies for the late public comment. I joined on a little bit late, but that I think a lot of the discussion here has been really lovely and great and effective. And but the one comment about the kind of 2 firefighters in the entire county who have the ability to make this determination to be I think like on a citizen level, I find kind of an unacceptable answer to the problem. There are a finite amount of balconies in Del Playa, and if those firefighters made an assessment for what is unacceptable risk for every single one of those balconies, if the CSD paid their overtime labor to come for over the course of 5 days, assess every single balcony in Isla Vista to determine what is unacceptable risk, and then let the local firefighters, the local people within Isla Vista and the UCSB Fire Department, be able to enforce based on the standards that they have set, aka number of people, maybe dancing up and down, those sorts of things. Then that's a way you can get around, and you've actually expanded the knowledge beyond those two people. I think there are a lot of good answers here, but I think that one as kind of a standalone excuse to me is I think like where our government doesn't really, and not saying you all, but like where our government doesn't want to do more, and where I think like the knowledge of two people should not be a limiting factor, because that knowledge, like we have writing, we can write that knowledge down, we can develop a policy standard that can be enforced based on people who are trained to enforce that standard.
Thank you for those comments. Are there any other board comments at this time?
Are we supposed to take an action? That was kind of the implication I was earlier of like what action we would be
Give
taking.
direction
What
to
actions.
staff, what you want us to do.
Okay, and that's, when I hear take action, I think that's like make a motion or something. That's what I was
So you can do that, or you can do general. You can say, don't do any of these things. You can say, do all of them. Don't do all of them except this.
What I'm hearing from the board overall is that there is an endorsement, it seems like, from all of our board members of looking into these initiatives and authorizing our staff to pursue these measures, and also to engage with county officials and California Coastal Commission. I feel like what I'm seeing from my directors is that they are committed to an ongoing review of these measures. Does anyone want to add, please?
I would just say, and I'm gonna kind of piggyback on something you said, there's a lot of really good ideas here, but all of them have a lead actor, supporting actor, right? And so I kind of feel like this needs to be put in some different type of format, so we know coastal zoning, who is the lead on this? Because some of these we can say we're supportive, but we have no jurisdiction, right? So I think that this does need to be put into some kind of Excel or something that we can say, lead, who's taking action, and who's working on it, whatever. And then find out exactly how we can help, because some of this, there's nothing we can do. Some of these things, we can just support Supervisor Cap's office. But maybe on Memorial, that is something that we can take a lead role. Or, so I just think that's why I mentioned, we might need a smaller work group with IVRPD, with other entities. Okay, yeah, with other entities, because I think we need to flush these out a little bit.
I think our work group that's been working on the social host ordinance is pretty much, us, foot patrol. I think we need that planning department, county parks, CEO's office. I think they need to be on this. We already have property owners, UCSB, AS.
Okay.
Us
good.
on our.
Let's not be so big.
Yeah,
that
no,
we're
this
so
is-
big. Because when we're so big, we do nothing.
There are
Yeah.
so many people in charge of this, sadly.
Let's bring just as many people as we have the Ivy Safe meeting to this meeting.
Can I-
Yeah, let's not do that.
Please share.
If I could just talk process for a second, because I appreciate where you're coming with this. And I'm meeting with all the department heads that are relevant to this in the next few days. County council, head of PD and planning and development, head of parks. We've already done a lot of these initial meetings, but so I think we'll start prioritizing, sort of to Jay's point. But I like the idea of a small subcommittee. And then to Mr. Trent's question about when, bringing this for the board, I'm anxious to bring this for the board, but I want action. I want to be asking to pay for things, or passing the social host ordinance, or a combination of a bunch of things. But the sooner the better. I've just been around the block when it comes to government, and we all feel compelled, but also there is advantage to moving fast because people are paying attention. And I'm very cognizant of how the chemistry of things moving. And so that's what I will work on that. So we have a good line of communication. We'll just keep that going. I'll learn more about fencing. I'll learn more about lighting. I'll learn more about the kind of infrastructure that we're talking about, and then work with you. But really, this helps me. That's why I wanted to be here. It was just to hear sort of a temperature and your feedback, and we can take that forward. But if you say like social host is good to go, I'll bring that forward to the Board of Supervisors.
And Lieutenant Tesla said that we'll have that ready for us to consider supporting or opposing 2 weeks from now. At our next meeting.
Oh, great. And I think the next conversation is on bathrooms. Is that right?
The next one.
I need to leave, but can I follow up with you on that piece? Because I just have to get home to a child. Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm just giving my email.
Also, I feel like we've given some clear direction to our staff, and we have some new conversations to look forward to and new information to look forward to in the future. All right, thank you everyone for being here. Thank you for participating in this conversation. At this point, I'd like to move on to our second item, 4.2, public portable restroom funding.
Well, this was a, we were both on the same page, us and the second district supervisor's office. We decided to put this on our agenda on Friday afternoon, and we spoke with our second district supervisor office right at the same time about their efforts to get something out immediately. But if we wanted to support and augment that service, it's a cost of $3,000 per year per restroom. So it's up to the board to determine which level of service we want and how much we want to get out there. So we know it's $3,000 per. The implementation, there's different implementation routes we need to take. So I don't think we need to worry too much about that today. It's just how much funding is the board willing to put out there for how many restrooms, public restrooms, and staff can work with. There's different options. We may do expansion of our park rental at the window to the sea to add restroom to the safety stations there, or we might give the county the county parks department more funding to expand with the one they've already got at their county parks. So there's different routes we take to make this happen, but we just need to know how much IVCSD has on the table, and we can go to partners and ask them to match, like other special districts like Galena West, IVCSD, other, if the county wants to do more.
Thank you. Do any directors have questions at this time?
I have a question.
Yes, please.
So I never got my computer charged, so I'm actually looking at my phone, which is really hard when you can't see well. Okay. Oh, you guys are so cute. I don't know what this is. That's lovely. So, okay, there's no bathrooms on DP right now.
0.
Okay. And so this was a quote that Jordan got from, oh, this is nice, from Cap's office.
Yeah, this is what the county was quoted for restrooms. We actually have been quoted a higher price in the past, but we're going to go off the county's price. It's what we were told to use.
Did the county request this because they are thinking about putting restrooms, or did they?
They got one out today already.
Get out.
Where is it? On Caps Park at the
that's so great.
It's on the eastern end, so at the eastern corner. So not near 6741, but the other side. So this is us if we want to augment that. And they had Jordan had originally told me they were looking at 10 to 15,000 themselves. So if we did 10 to 15,000 as well, that's 5.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yes, Dr.
Do we have specific locations on DP that we're thinking about putting them?
That's next steps. We kind of just put this up, me and Director Aguilar on top. If we were just talking on Friday, let's put something on our agenda for funding restrooms, and we'll figure out the details later, just so we can take action.
I really like the idea of going to other entities and asking them to partner. I think this is a good initial first commitment of this list that we just discussed in the previous item. Something tangible that people can do right now.
Right.
Dr. Freeman.
I am very excited about providing people bathrooms.
Dr. Brandt.
I am also very excited, and I favor us committing the 15. I think in the grand scheme of things, this is budget dust for us.
Yeah.
I think that if we may not even deploy 15K worth. That'll probably be dependent on what sites we have, which sounds like it's the next step. But I think it's good to give maximum flexibility. And I know, from talking with our staff, in reviewing the budget surveys that we do each year, restrooms on Del Playa is frequently one of the top 7 things people are looking for. And that's completely outside of the issue that we've just had. I do think that it's worth noting to Director Freeman's comments on the last item about the circumstances that the last 2 falls that have happened because someone was trying to find a place to use the restroom. Yeah. And so I think this really does have a direct correlation with our previous discussion.
These would be out all 24/7,
That's awesome.
cleaned twice a week on Saturday and Sunday.
I just want to be clear. So this line 27, there's one quantity, and so it's about $3,000. So that's one for the whole year, 24/7.
Yeah, and so we're not even really talking about a full year either right now. It's a fiscal year, so we'll make them. Yeah, we'll adjust this, but this is just what we got from our buildings
Amazing.
yesterday.
Thank you. I want to open this item up for any public comments. If there's any public comment this particular item. Yes.
Did you say it was in 2 times a week?
Yeah.
This
Is that gonna
Yes.
be enough? Is there any? I rent.
We can always do more.
My
Yeah.
business at 2 times a week is minimal. We should have a lot of people using it.
I guess we'll see how it goes.
Okay.
It's that's what the conversation I had with the 2nd District Supervisor's office is. We'll start with this and see where we go.
Yeah, because usually when I rent it, it's the more they clean it, the cheaper the price is.
Mhm,
And
that's
the
true.
less you use it, the higher the price.
That's true.
is. So 2 times is that middle ground.
Maybe that's why the quote that you had gotten for the one time
Right.
was way higher.
That's possible, yeah.
I didn't know that. Thanks, Greg.
Director Freeman.
I figure since we're not purchasing bathrooms, we're not constructing bathrooms, we're just renting bathrooms, we can figure it out over time. We can start with some bathrooms, we start with some bathrooms, there's service and served rate, we can see how well that goes. We could, if we need to decrease the number, but increase the number of services, we can figure it out.
Yeah.
Or we can get started immediately. It's really
Yeah.
great.
If I just had the funding authorized, yeah, I'll figure it out. Yeah.
Spencer, you mentioned 15,000. What were you thinking? Were you thinking, did you say 15,000?
That was, I think, from what staff had mentioned, the range would be. So I would make the motion to authorize $15,000 towards bathrooms.
I think it was the range that the 2nd District office was considering
That's-
inputting
that
was
was-
15,000. And so then if we were to match that, I think it's the potential conversation here.
Yeah, and like I mentioned, with the understanding that ultimately the level that we spend will be dependent on how many sites we have.
If I heard you correctly, you made a motion, I will second it.
Okay.
Right, is there any board comment on this motion? Is there any public comment on this motion? I see no public
Look forward to
comment.
using them.
I'm with you.
Oh, Lord.
Thank you for those comments. Well, seeing no further comments, all directors who are in favor of this motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, please say no. And this motion passes 7-0-0-0. Now, I'd like to move on to item 4.3, the Isla Vista Safe Fall Meeting Agenda.
Okay, we're on a public safety roll today. So this is the proposed agenda for the fall Ivy Safe meeting. We don't have a date set yet. And we talked to some of our core players today about figuring out a new date. But what we're looking at is Isla Vista Bluff safety. And we'll see how that discussion evolves as the conversation evolves. But we know that it's gonna be something we'll need to talk about. We're gonna talk about Halloween's not gonna really have much planning left to do, but the main intention is that we were gonna share information about Halloween and then plan for Deltopia. So that was our intention always. And we had said that after we finished our updated festival and social host ordinance work group, we would move on to a work group for planning for Deltopia. So that'll talk about that. At the last Ivy Safe meeting, we said that all the organizations would compile information about what they do on fentanyl use and safety, and then bring it back to Ivy Safe to do the information and partnership development there. I mentioned this updated festival and social host ordinance already, so that's done now. As of today, our work group has finished, so it's going to go to county council, the DA, then to us for support, and for then to Ivy Safe before the county board in about a month. I think we said October 19th for the board of supervisors to hear the festival ordinance. So there'll be a couple more steps for feedback before it goes there. And then the last thing that's been requested by both UCSB and some long-term residents is a item on long-term residents' neighborhood concerns on things like disturbance of peace and parties. And a lot of those items will actually be discussed in the festival and social host ordinance item, actually a lot, but it was requested as an agenda item by UCSB and by some long-term residents. So that's why we put this on, that they would make a presentation about what the concerns are. There's no action to take at Ivy Safe, but at least everyone there can start hearing it and see if any ideas come up on next steps that weren't already addressed and the actions we're already taking in the other things we're doing. So that's the proposed agenda. 5 is already a lot. So I don't know if we want to add any more.
What did you say about the date? It hasn't
Yeah,
been set?
we're trying to figure out a date. We got good responses in the doodles, but you don't have UCSB, but you've got IVRP, or you don't have AS, but you've got the sheriff. No one really matched up, especially the core agencies that need to be there. So we're gonna look at other times, like breakfast times or other times. It's just tough to schedule something like this.
Well, when it was at the DA's office, it was a set time, right? Wasn't it? At first it was like this such and such.
For a
day.
while,
Yeah.
at the beginning, yeah. And then they moved to, we could, it's just our second meeting and we just haven't, we're just ramping up.
It would be really nice to socialize a date and time, so then people just start getting used to it, because doodle polls are a nightmare.
That's the plan.
They're so undemocratic and democratic all at the same time.
I'm gonna make the 6th agenda item a set time. I'm gonna make that something we will decide on at Ivy Safe, that, the next one will be second Wednesday of every month.
If it's important to people, they'll prioritize
come.
it. Yeah.
Okay, we'll put that as an agenda item. I think that's good to do. Duly noted. We already got feedback that people didn't want Mondays and Tuesdays, so that. Yeah, so we're gonna get there.
Yeah. Looks good.
Yes.
Well, thank you. If I look at the list of, things that we have on here, I'm just impressed because we're so ahead of the curve on a lot of these things. Like, we're thinking proactively about Halloween, Deltopia, fentanyl. Obviously, social host has been a thing that you both have been working on with the lieutenant for a while. I even went back because someone had asked me a question about just safety in Isla Vista in general, like where we're at. So I did want to take the opportunity to share that in looking at the sheriff's crime statistics from 2016 to now, we've got a 50% decrease in violent crime and property crime. And the biggest decreases have been in robbery, aggravated assault, and burglary. So I think when I look at this is like almost a recognition that it's kind of like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Like we're starting to meet our higher order needs, and we can start planning for the future, which I think is great. One suggestion that I'll have, and maybe it doesn't work into this, maybe it does. Just when I'm looking at the long-term residents' neighborhood concerns is, thinking about how to make that conversation as productive as possible, and wondering if there's a role for us to talk about peer-to-peer neighbor outreach. And I know a number of us that have talked about the UCIV program. I think for me, that's what I meant when I was talking about UCIV. UCIV was like this peer-to-peer outreach. Often students talking to other students, their neighbors, to try to mitigate some of these concerns before they come up and actively when they do come up. But I wonder if it would be something worth discussing because I think from what we've received from neighborhood concerns is that a lot of the lower level things aren't getting enforced. I mean, that's not unique to Isla Vista. That's a problem across the entire county because of the chronic staffing shortage the sheriff has.
Right.
And no one has a magic wand to fix that. The sheriff is trying, I think, and they're bringing on more deputies, but in the short run, that's my pitch for, the value of talking about some sort of a peer-to-peer, resident-to-resident program to try to solve some of these things.
Yeah, I think we can talk about that at the IVC meeting as well.
I know there's already, this is a long agenda. I like the idea, maybe somebody else already said this, but it just popped in my brain. I like the idea of, we're bringing all these different entities together and there's always turnover of people. And so sometimes people don't know what other agencies do, what role they have. I think it might be nice to, for 5 minutes, have one agency or group just give an overview of who they are, what they do. I just think it might be a nice way to build connections. Maybe not. Think about it.
I like that. I like that. No, we didn't do that.
That makes me feel good.
And we do have the long-term Ivy Foot Patrol Lieutenant on our list of backlog things, but this one had a lot of continuing items from last time. So, and the bluff safety came on that we didn't originally plan. So, it's on our list though. I have a running list.
Are we since I was in the restroom, are we in the question asking or already in the commenting period?
I didn't do anything to move things ahead while you were gone. so
Okay.
we-
I started talking when no one even told me to talk. I thought I was in charge.
Glad
I'm sitting next to you.
That's good. I'm glad
Took over.
You did share.
So embarrassing.
Vice Chair.
Okay, well, so at this point, I will see if there's any public comment on this IB Safe agenda item. All right, I see no public comments. I'll go back to the board and see if there's any board commentary on this item. Yes,
Just a thank you again to our reps on ID Safe.
Definitely.
And just really happy that you're the ones there.
Yeah.
I will second that appreciation. I'm really glad that it's you two. I'm really glad that this agenda has some very actionable items and very real tangible things, including the long-term residents concerns I've heard a lot about on my side of town. So yes, I'm glad that we have this list. Yes.
Sorry to take one more bite at the apple. Just wanted to acknowledge that I had a conversation with the new superintendent of Santa Barbara City College who indicated that she's interested in joining, or if she's not able to, sending a representative, which I think is really cool.
It's awesome.
All right, well, have we given enough direction on this item?
We'll get to it.
Okay. So now let's move on to item 4.4, the Halloween Festival and Grant Program funding.
Okay, well, we had a ad hoc committee to work with Maya on this. Maya's on the Zoom to share about it, but essentially we're recommending something very similar to what we did last year, but in concept, but I think we're gonna have details that are very fresh and updated. And we are asking for a budget of around 40,000, which is bigger than before, but that was the outcome of what our ad hoc had discussed, is to look at additional funding to make the event more impactful. So Maya, if you want to talk about the details of the event or what you're looking at, and just to clarify, the event is going to be on Saturday, October 28th from 12 to 6. So, and that doesn't conflict with any other of our partners who are having events. AS does their concerts at night, and IVRPD is going to be going on Monday and Tuesday, so we won't be conflicting. But yeah, Maya, if you want to talk about what the festival is gonna look like, that'd be great.
Yes, hello everyone. Thanks for talking about this today. I'll share a little bit with what I shared with the ad hoc committee as a whole, shifting away from something that we did last year, which was something we did relying a lot on internal support and internal staffing. And this year we're really turning to the community to get as many community organizations involved in the festival planning, performing, and entertaining process. So we're hoping to have people tabling not only from local organizations, but also local businesses. I pointed to the inspiration of the Portland Pride Festival, which I highly recommend looking at their website if you have any extra time. It has a lot of different kinds of organizations coming together to produce something for the community and increase everyone's community equity. And yeah, work together to create something really great. Originally, I had a budget of about half of this, mainly focused on hiring local entertainment and performers, also highlighting community center vendors as well, having some free workshops. But with more budget, which is what you'll see reflected in this memo, I'm really hoping to expand our reach and also offer incentives for local businesses and organizations to participate and get involved in the community. We're hoping to have at least 2 different stages with acts going on throughout the day. Lots of local vendors and, like I said, businesses and resources invited to share what they offer to our community. So I'm actually made an outreach list today, and I've been collaborating with some local entertainment experts on different avenues, like having local art, interactive art displays, like I said, music, and again, performers. So our outreach list is over 80 people already of different organizations and performers and vendors that we want to get involved. So we're hoping to have a really great Halloween this year.
Maybe if our committee wants to share anything.
I would just like to say that I was really impressed with Maya and what she's pulled together. And I know part of her vision is that we would be able to do more of this stuff in-house and really save quite a bit of money over the outside vendor that we've hired in the past. And given how much she's done already and the networking that she's created and the plans and the partnerships, I feel really confident that this is something that she and we can do. And I would like to have additional funding for Halloween because I think it's a really key event for Isla Vista. And I think that this will be part of our glide path to taking more of the responsibility in-house and being able to do it in a more local and economical way.
Yes.
I want to second that. Maya has done some crazy cool stuff. Like all of this looks really, really interesting. And a big thing that came up in the committee was that we didn't want her to have to do acrobatics to try to make this festival the most effective and good and nice it could be, and that this would help with that. And it really can be an amazing, amazing festival. We also changed the time. We discussed changing the time so it will parallel what's happening or the timing on the Deltopia Festival to make it a little bit more cohesive, make it a piece of the community.
Right, do any directors have questions at this time? I just want to understand more clearly what the collaboration with IVRPD is. So that's later in the middle of the week, correct?
It's a separate event. They're doing a Dia de los Muertos event on Wednesday, and we're going to be helping with funding and some setup. It's at a similar time, not at the same time, but in the same evening as our parking town hall.
Got you.
But we're supporting that event. And, yeah.
And I also
And
do want to
so-
say that we're hoping for some cross collaboration with their event as well. They invited us to host a booth in their Halloween event. And I also hope that they will attend ours as well and host a booth of some sort. So we are hoping for some cross collaboration at both of our events.
Okay, perfect. That answers my question. I'd like to now ask if there's any public comment or question on this item and report. Right, I see no public comment. So this item is to consider approval of funding for the 2023 Halloween Festival Grant Program. Is there any board commentary or discussion on this item?
Got a broken down budget there, 22 for the event and 10 for the grant program, which we didn't mention. But it's the same grant program we did last year. And it'll be for events that are outside of the Saturday 12 to 6 time. So we can spread out our effectiveness. So someone wants to do something on Friday or Saturday night or Sunday. Last year we funded a multicultural spot. We funded food co-op doing something. We funded the IVRPD event. There was a fourth one. And the teen center did an event too. The youth center did an event too. So
Perfect. Dr. Freeman.
I just have one quick clarifying question. In some sense, we're not necessarily allocating new funds or anything. We're just allocating funds out of an existing budget item. For example, community festival, we've already allocated $110,000 for that. We're not adding anything there. We're just choosing to spend some of the festival money on a festival.
you're just authorizing it for this use. Yeah. You got to appropriate and authorize.
Dr. Bray.
Well, I just want to say a big thank you to Maya too for all the work that you've put into this. This is the type of programming that our community needs, whether it's comedy or the petting zoo, the acrobatics. I'm really excited for all of it. And I just think it's important that the community knows, and I think many of you know, that this is the way that we give people an alternative to the party scene that can be dangerous at times. And I think that this is also really valuable, that we will continue to do our public outreach with the door hanger about what the restrictions are and the ordinances during Halloween, as well as the resources. So I'm very supportive of this.
Yeah, we're crossing our fingers. We can line everything up perfectly so that the new ordinances pass, and then we can incorporate them to the door hanger and get the information out to the community.
If it goes on the 19th, it won't go into effect.
We can at least inform them. Like we can say this is
That's a
coming.
good point.
30
It
days,
has,
isn't it?
yeah.
Yeah,
Isn't 2 30-day readings?
we did discuss asking to make it an urgency
Oh.
ordinance if we got enough votes in the ad hoc committee today. We might make that request.
Yes.
So I think this looks great, and Maya, born, good, you're a good host. You put together really good parties. So this all looks good, but one comment I have, that I hope that, that while I think it's a great aspirational goal to be able to do things in-house, I would hate to see that you take on so much that you can't do. So that's all. But that's a management issue. I think it is aspirational to think, everything can be done in-house, but I also, don't do too much. That's all, call on resources if you need more help. That's all I would say.
Thank
and
you.
The other thing I want, thing I wanted to, okay, let me finish and then you. I did want to just make a note that the city of Goleta approved funding for its parking program, and it specifically did not fund a parking program for Halloween. And the reason is because they said it's really been a non-event. And I love that, because it's really testament to all the work that people are doing to make Ivy Halloween, a safe, fun, community-oriented place to be, and not have it be, crazy, and not have it have a big impact on the community. So I thought that was kind of just a wonderful wonderful comment. So go ahead.
Oh, thank you. I just wanted to rest assure everyone that I am not doing this by myself. In any means, I actually, instead of working with like a bigger production company, I'm working with some local experts. I actually just had a meeting with about 4 people today, running different avenues of the show and helping me source and manage some of the high volume of people that we expect to be there. So while I am doing a lot of work to put this together, I am using local community members who have done something like this in the past and kind of bringing all their strengths together in a lot cheaper, but also properly compensating them type of way for what they're doing. So I'm not alone, and I really appreciate you expressing that too, because I would be terrified if I took this on by myself. So thank you.
All right, thank you for those comments. Thank you for sharing that story from the city of Goleta also. I was trying to remember the exact line, but it was, yeah, a non-event, and that definitely warmed my heart that Iosta is a little bit safer in exterior perspective as well.
Put that on a t-shirt.
Yeah. Oh my
About
gosh,
time.
we should get hats. That would be so cool.
Out of that.
All right, well, is there a motion on this report and budget?
Approve the recommended action if you want to summarize all 5 into one.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, is there a second on that motion?
I'll second.
Okay, we have the motion by Topliff and the second by Scholes. Is there any public comment on this motion? I see no public comment on this motion, so I will go to a vote. All directors who are in favor of this, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say no. So this motion passes 7-0-0-0.
You sound great, by the way.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm so glad to be sitting next to you.
Yeah. You traded spots.
I know.
You had the offer.
So now we'll move on to item 4.5, the summer bike removal update.
And I'll pass it over to Jenna, who was working a lot on this with the County Public Works Department, to share about what happened and our role, and just give an update. And you can share your screen, Jenna, if you will.
Okay, I will. Okay, can everyone see that?
You can zoom it out a little bit more.
Okay, like that?
Yeah.
Okay. So a couple weeks ago, the abandoned bikes are finally removed from all the racks. So here are our totals. 148 bikes were tagged and 82 were actually removed and impounded. And this time we were able to work closely with the county. We provided them a list of all the bikes beforehand. It was like a spreadsheet with photos and locations, just in case they wanted to reference it. We posted on social media to warn people in advance, and we attached physical signage to all of the bike racks.
Pretty much it. They look really nice and clear now.
Yeah. So we'll be monitoring that, and we will continue to be in contact with the county every time that the bikes are removed.
All right, thank you for that update. Is there any board questions at this time? Dr. Brea.
Just a comment that I think it looks great. So thank you for all of your work on this. And I don't think that we've received any complaints from anyone that had their bike wrongfully impounded, which is always great. So really glad that you're able to make this happen.
Thank you.
We got one question where they can get their bike, and we let them know.
And my question was just, if you tagged 148 and only removed 82, does that mean almost half of what you tagged weren't really abandoned bikes?
It does for the most part. I do believe that sometimes these racks are still used for like really long-term storage, and the person doing it pulls off the tag. Because if that tag is not on them, then they won't get removed.
They tag them all. So they tag them all on one day and then they say, we'll be back 3 days later. If your bike is still here with the tag, it's gone. So if you knew that, you can cut your tag and leave your bike there.
Mhm.
It's
Interesting.
like a new bike that just showed up. Good rip.
And I know that this was originally slated for a different time period where more of our neighbors were going to be out of town. So I hope that that 50% number makes you feel vindicated for advocating to change the date, because it's good that our neighbors that didn't actually have abandoned bikes didn't come back from break to see their bike on.
Yeah, it'll be great to keep in contact with the county from now on so that we can make sure we're scheduling the bike removal at a good time.
Well, so I'll go to public comments if there's any public comment on this update. We have, yes, Mark, please share your comments with us.
Hi, everyone. So I have, I think, 4 questions, which is one, what happens to the bikes after they're impounded? 2, what regularity does both the CSD and the county, or I guess in conjunction, expect this to occur going forward? And has it occurred in the past? Second thing is, how does the 48-hour advance notice compare to the way UCSD tags and removes its bicycles? I have like a memory of my time as a student that there would be tags, little kind of like almost like tape style tags that would be on the bikes for maybe about 5 days to even like 5 to 10 days or even longer. I'm just curious how the comparison is. And then what is the process for claiming your bikes? I know that's a lot of questions, but like the biggest question I have is I'd love to know what happens to the bikes after the fact, and if there's like a nonprofit or something where the abandoned bikes go to.
I can speak to the process. And also to answer your question, this is typically done once per year. But it's been, I can't say exactly, it's been longer than a year since these past bikes were removed, but typically it is once a year. And what will happen is every bike is tagged with a warning that says if it's left there for more than 48 hours, it'll be removed. And then 48 hours later, the county will come and remove all of the bikes that still have the tags. As for UCSB's process, I can't speak to that. I do remember being there over the summer one time and having my bike tagged with a zip tie, I think the entire time, but I don't know what their process is. And Jonathan, where exactly do they store the bikes after they're collected?
Yeah, they take them to the Santa Barbara Sheriff's Office headquarters for 90 days for safekeeping and pickup. I don't know what happens to them afterwards.
And that would be the County of Public Works who handles them after, do you think?
Yeah, we have no, we'll have to ask. We don't know.
If you don't mind, if I wanted to know who to reach out to after those 90 days for those bikes, or who could know that information, who's the best person for me to, or best department for me to reach out to, because it would be a shame if those bikes were disposed of rather than recycled or even upcycled and given away to folks in need who could use a bicycle.
You can try asking the Ivy Foot Patrol, Colby Carroll, since they possess them. So.
Thank you.
He's the community resource deputy.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, thank you for those comments and questions. Are there any other public comments at this time? I see no public comments, so I'll go back to the board and see if there's any board comment. I'll start out with a short, funny story that my bike did get impounded this summer from UCSB without a tag, but I think it was with a series of other daily commute employees who just would park their bike in the same place. So I'm glad that our district had proper notification with tags and everything. I had to pay $10 to get my bike out of the CSO impound area. My lock was taken too. Had to buy a new lock. It was stressful and, you know, just a daily work commute for me. But luckily it was in the budget. Yeah, do any other directors have comments they'd like to share? All right, well, I think that we're all very satisfied with this program and given enough direction at this point. All right, thank you. We will now move on to item 4.6, resolution 23-11.
Hopefully this is an easy one. So Jenna is working on a big event this weekend, the move-in sale. So all the stuff we've collected at the move out, we've got stored, and we've been working with Vivian and IVCSD to have this sale, but we need to be able to accept credit card payments. So this resolution, you know, it's a government code. If you want to accept credit card payments, yeah, pass a resolution like this. Jamie drafted it in quick time for us. And yeah, if we approve this, we should be able to have the vendor and everything set up by Friday and ready to go to accept payments this weekend. If not, it'll be cash only, but we're working hard to make it happen.
I'd like to move approval of resolution 2311.
Second.
All right, thank you for that motion and that second. I want to ask a quick question about this resolution. So this also includes like paying electronically with like a phone and that kind of a thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Apple Pay. Yeah.
Got you. Okay. Is there any questions on this motion? Are there any comments on this motion? I see none, so I'll go to a vote. All directors who are in favor of approving this resolution, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say no. And this motion passes 7-0-0-0. We will now move on to item 4.7, letter of support for ACA 13.
Director Brent introduced this one.
Thank you. Yeah, I asked for this item to be on the agenda at the request of the Santa Barbara County Special Districts Association. They are encouraging their member agencies to write letters of support for ACA 13, which stands for Assembly Constitutional Amendment. And the letter, if you read it, it's kind of complicated and jargony, but I just want to give the background because I think the background is more important. What a constitutional amendment would do is require that if there is a ballot measure that's going to increase the voting percentage threshold for something to happen, that ballot measure needs to pass by that same threshold. So for those of you that have been following the reproductive rights struggle in Ohio, there was a ballot measure recently that would have passed if it got to 50%. But what it would have done is increase the threshold for future constitutional amendments to pass to a higher percentage. And the background of that was all because there's this measure that will be coming forward to the voters in Ohio in November about reproductive rights. And so it was kind of a way for the sort of small majority to kind of, I guess, basically try to put roadblocks in place. Kind of almost like a tyranny of the minority thing. But what's happening in California is that there is a ballot measure from the California Business Roundtable that is basically the new Proposition 13 that would really limit the ability for local governments to raise taxes, to spend fees, and to set those fees. It redefines the definition of a tax to be more expansive. And it's something that notably it would require most new taxes and fees to be approved by 2/3 majority. And this is something that under the current rules could be passed with just 50% majority. So ACA 13 would require that this measure needs to pass with 2/3 because it's increasing the threshold. I hope I did a good job explaining that because it's kind of complicated.
Yeah, no, you did.
But that's why I feel that it's important. I mean, both for our district, as we, we have our tax, we're going to be, I think, considering setting additional fees in the future, that this would create a lot more administrative work for. We already have with the measures that are in place, I think, a really robust and rigorous process for when we do set those fees. So that's my pitch for how we can send a letter of support.
Thank you for the explanation. Do any directors have questions at this time? Yes.
My only question or slash comment is that I think with this letter, since it's already passed the Senate Elections Committee, that it probably might, it is going to Senate Appropriations Committee. I'm just not sure if it makes sense to send it to the author. It was considered on Tuesday. Today's Tuesday, yesterday. I happened to be watching the Senate Elections Committee. And so there was the special districts testified, there were tons of cities that testified. So it's already, gotten through that hurdle. So that's all. I was just gonna say, I mean, I think it's nice to send it to the author, but it's already through that body. It's in the Senate now. So that's all.
Yeah, great point. And we can maybe add just a CC for the
Yeah.
committee that it's in now.
Yeah, you could do it to Senator Probst and then you copy Senator Lamone, yeah. I would just word it a little bit differently just to reflect that, in fact, it's through that body. It's already through the assembly.
Gotcha. So we could change assembly basically to just say Senate, I think. It would be that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, thank him for his leadership on bringing up this issue. And, we support passage in the Senate, that kind of thing, yeah.
It's almost like you do advocacy professional.
One might think.
All right, I see no current questions. Is there any, see a hand raised in the public comments? I'll go to public comment. Mark, please share your comments with us.
3 in one night, we were so lucky.
I was going to make similar kind of technical comments regarding the addressee of the letter, and so I think I actually think addressing it to the author's office is not a bad idea. But continuing to CC Senate Appropriations, Senator Portantino, and maybe even the pro tem. I'd also note that there's a period missing at the very last sentence of the letter, so just to ensure that. And I would also encourage the board to direct staff to consider approval of this letter with the amendment, with kind of, I guess, the most current version of the bill's amendments. The current letter that you all are approving is, I think at the top of the letter, it says the August 27th version. And I would encourage you to ensure that you are approving a version. I don't think there's I don't think there's major changes to the letter from the bill from August 27th to September 11th which was the last amended time. But I would encourage you to write a letter in response to the most recent version of the bill. And so if that can be done within this public process right now and they're not substantially different, I would just encourage that for the impact of this letter to have the most salient effect. And I guess I also would just say that, like, yeah, I think Spencer had put it very well and described the bill very well, that if you're going to raise the voting threshold for something, you got to meet the voting threshold on that in a proposition. And so I encourage support of this the ACA 13 in general, and I appreciate the IVCSD taking a support position.
All right, thank you for those comments. I'll go back to the board if there's any board commentary on this item.
Friendly with Mark's suggestions.
I don't think it was amended on the 11th. We can look it up.
Well, and Jonathan's got a comment here to switch it to the updated version.
So I'll make a move that we send this letter with the corrections that we discussed here.
Right, is there a second for this motion?
Second.
All right, the motion by Topliff and the second by Deschler. Is there any public comment on this motion? See no public comment on this motion, so I'll go to the board. All directors who are in favor of this motion, please say aye.
Aye. Hope you hold the vote roll.
Yeah, we could. I'll pause on this vote real quick. I'll re-ask that question when she returns. All right, Craig, we were just waiting because we wanted to have your vote as part of this.
We know you wanted
motion.
to weigh in on this. This is really.
Dude, you have no need to apologize. I took a break myself. So the motion is to approve this letter with the discussed amendments today. The motion was made by Topliff and the second by Deschler. There's been no public comment on this motion, so we're going to a vote. All directors who are in favor of this motion, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, please say no. And this motion passes 7-0-0-0. That concludes our discussion and action items part of the night. We will now move on to section 5, reports. Are there reports from members of the board? Yes.
I'll just say a couple of things. One is move-in weekend is move-in is happening soon. UCSB students are coming back, moving into campus residence halls and off-campus residence halls, and the 21st through the 24th. So there's going to be some campus parking lots will be closed during that time. There's going to be one the eastbound on El Colegio. There's going to be one lane closed by Sierra Madre and San Joaquin for unloading and loading zone. So that's going to be happening. So it's going to be a little bit busy the 21st through the 24th around Isla Vista and campus. So I wouldn't mention that. And then I wanted to mention just housing, our campus, kind of a campus housing update in terms of what it looks like going into the fall quarter. So we're doing really well. There's nobody on the waiting list for on-campus or off-campus housing, and actually we have 200 bed openings. So it's very promising starting the fall quarter.
That is great news to hear.
Yeah.
Are there any other reports from members of the board or questions about that report we just heard? I'll share a quick report. I've been going through a very serious housing search during this summer, and I'm finally in the clear. I'll be signing my documents to remain.
Yay!
Delivering a very large check tomorrow morning to a property owner on 6-8 Sabado. And there was a tenant who moved into the house where I'm leaving, who then decided to last second move. They were a first-year student, and they found dorm housing in the middle of the summer, which I felt was very late in the game, but we now know factually that there are spaces for students, so you don't have to live in garages with bugs and spiders and things. So so
where you'll be.
I will not be. I will not be.
Okay. That's great news.
Yes. So I'm very happy to get over that. I also want to share that yesterday, I guess I'll wait to the next item to share what I was going to. Are there any other board members who wish to share updates? Right, I'll move on to item 5.2, reports from standing and ad hoc committees. So I'll start off what I was going to share. Yesterday we had our first regular parking meeting. It went very smoothly. We had our consultants here to share information. We shared with the public that Isla Vista is overparked. Isla Vista through April through July. Did we have the data from April through July?
Just June.
Just June. We are sitting at an average of 106% full, meaning that we are more than full, meaning that there are more cars than there are legal parking spaces in the normal roads of Isla Vista. Something that we probably all observed and felt, but now we have information to prove that feeling. Yes, Director Freeman, do you have anything you want to share from that committee meeting or any updates?
Nope. I think it is interesting to note that very few people came to that meeting. I think that is very much to be a testament to how strong our public outreach has been leading up to that meeting. Because that was like the 5th or 6th time I heard that presentation, and we had a lot of participation in the little sub meetings that occurred before our first public meeting. And I was kind of worried that we were going to show up to the public meeting and there was going to be a giant army of people angry, and there was no one angry. So
a lot more opportunities.
There'll be more angry people.
All right, are there any other standing and ad hoc committees that'd like to share a report? All right, I see none, so we'll go to our report from district council.
I do actually have a brief report. So I know that we've been kind of discussing the use of Narcan, fentanyl overdoses. I just wanted to let you all know that Narcan is now available over the counter. People may purchase it at CVS, Walmart, Walgreens, any pharmacy store. However, they are pricing it at $45 for 2 doses. So I think at this point it is still very cost prohibitive. As you know, we've identified a lot of resources where you can get it for free, community facilities, health facilities. So I think it's a step forward. Wanted to keep you updated. Progress. I don't know if it's progress for progress' sake, but it's a start.
I had a question. So is that, is it in various forms of delivery of the medicine, or is it in, can you speak on that?
It's the nasal spray, intranasal spray. So it's like 2 doses per packet that they're selling for $45.
Got you. Okay. I think that answered my question. Dr. Bray.
So this means that we can just go buy it wholesale and we don't have to go through the standing order process with the governor.
I don't know about wholesale. That's an interesting question, but for the district, I would probably still recommend the standing order because it's free. It might be more expeditious to buy it wholesale. I just wouldn't know the cost of that.
All right, well, thank you for that report. I'll now move on to our report from general manager and staff.
So some exciting stuff. So we've hired a replacement community engagement project manager, and it's Fiona Salsich, who used to work for us with a mobility plan.
Was it?
Her name's Fiona.
Oh,
Salsich.
Fiona.
So yeah, she moved back to Santa Barbara, and we had the job
nice.
open, so that was convenient.
Awesome.
And so we also been working with Kimberly and Viviana on revamping the IV community network meetings. So we had a good meeting today about that. Looking for something in October. And Compost Collective, the collections began again. I don't have an exact number of how many people have signed up. I think it's around 30 at this point. So Compost Collective is on a roll. And Ivy Beautiful, we have the move-in sale this weekend. So that's going to be a big event. It looks like it's gotten a lot of traction. KYT covered it. So we'll see how many people come. Hopefully we have enough stuff to sell. You heard our IV Safe update today. I don't have an update on the safety stations and the budget discussions with them and how we're going to do that, but I think it's going to work out. I just don't have an update right now. And I haven't gotten confirmation from UCPD, though I've asked if they've been able to launch yet or not. So they weren't able to launch on the original date because of staffing issues. So I don't know if they are when they're able to launch. Community center, you can see we're done with all the nice work for the summer. And thank you for approving the bulletin board for Perdal at the consent agenda. So we will have that coming up soon. For the mobility plan, thankfully, we've had significant progress from KTUA finally. So I saw a draft today of the progress they've been making. So I'm feeling more satisfied that things are, we're going to meet our deadline with CARB because, we don't want to violate the state's deadlines for the money they're giving us. The county still hasn't approved the acoustics project. So I'll keep reporting on that until they do, even though we've sent everything. I might just do the project and move on.
I think at the IV Safe meeting, because it'll be in that room, you should say something.
Yeah, the DA has
Because the
already
county's
said
gonna be
something.
there, and you feel
Yeah.
like, this is why it sounds so terrible,
Yeah.
because you all haven't approved it, it's been a year. Why not?
Yeah.
Name and shame, man.
Yeah, I could. The DA actually already made the direct request, Joyce Dudley herself. As we do.
Right.
Long retired.
Long retired, but still, it's been no secret. The parking study, like you heard, we had our first public meeting. The needs assessment portion of that study is complete, or the draft is complete. That's good progress. We hired our intern for the study, so they're going to start doing the outreach as the year starts. We have a date for our town hall. It's November 1st at 6 p.m. That's gonna be the big public, outreach event where we educate people about parking and bring them into the process. And just a lot of work in general is getting done on the parking study, so there's
Can I
just.
make
lot
a
of-
comment on
Yeah.
that? So somebody said that that's gonna overlap with IVRPD Dia de los
Yeah, it's an
Muertos.
event we're involved with too. It's just that event can only be that day and
Right.
our consultants can only come those
Are
2
they
days.
totally in conflict
We're gonna
time?
work to not make that happen.
Okay,
Yeah,
great.
we're,
I
yeah,
mean, it might be nice if you did some crossover,
Yeah,
like, you
yeah.
know. get
come to
people
this one,
dressed.
go to there, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
or
we'll
give
work
it a
on that.
theme, parking deal, de los Muertos
Yeah.
theme.
Yeah, it's just, there's a hard to make everything fit, but it's just the only date our consultants are here.
Got it,
Yeah.
yeah, okay, got it.
Yeah, you heard about the community festival, and just to remind you, I won't be able to make it, but next Tuesday at September 19th, the Board of Supervisors is supposed to be discussing our library funds request to have the money come to us instead of from the county to the city of Goleta or another vendor.
We should have somebody from
From
From here.
yeah,
Could you repeat the date?
September
Yeah.
19th, it's the next week.
because that would be important to have somebody make a public comment.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the reminder why I can't make it is I technically have jury duty the next 2 weeks, but we'll see if I get called in. So, there's a good chance I don't get called. So I'll monitor that. And then good news is our audit for 21-22 is almost finished, way past the deadline, but we finally got the draft from our auditor a couple days ago. And then we'll move on to our 2022-2023 audit to get that done hopefully on time. So that's where everything is at. And obviously, we've been working a lot on the bluff safety issue, and that took all the time. Really.
Who did the work here? It's so,
It's a muralist that Maya had found and brought on. So
so great, really great. I
It does
love
look
the,
nice.
I love little
it's
community
a
rooms.
local artist, and
Yeah.
it matches the colors of the carpet.
Yeah, it's really good. Really good. Good work. Maya's there, good work.
And the shelves behind you are new, and
Such
just lots
great
of little
books
things.
on
Yeah,
the
lots of
shelves.
little things.
Yeah, it's really super.
All right,
Just an example of what we do for the spaces.
Yeah.
That others don't. Yeah.
as good
Yeah.
tenants.
Yeah.
At this point, I'd like to move on to our
Closed session.
closed session.
Oh, we have a close
Yes,
session.
and so we have 3 items. Were you requesting that we did that one on county properties last, correct? Yes. Item 1.1,
I'm just gonna grab a printout. Yeah.
perfect, thank you.
Does it?
There's just a
No, it is a
minor,
typo.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
that's why I brain fog like to.
Oh, okay, okay.
I noticed last night, sent an email, sounds like.
Oh, you
it's okay.
did? Okay. Are we taking a break?
We are taking a couple of minutes break.
Did you just say that and I missed it?
No,
No,
I
it's
just
like-
decided after, I just decided after you suggested.
It's 8:00. 8:13.
Yeah, the vent was great at the beginning.
Are you guys freezing?
I'm so.
I am
I'm
so
like,
freezing.
why
I am
don't
too.
put that?
I'm pulled out your scarf in the middle. I'm like going like this.
On you, we're ending our break, while our general manager is passing out materials for the board. Could you do the readout?
Sure. Okay, so we have item 1.1, conference with real property negotiators pursuant to government code section 54956.8. Property is 970 and 976 Embarcadero Del Mar at Isla Vista and Pardal Solar Lot. Agency negotiators, Margos Aguilar, Board President, Carrie Topliff, Vice President, Bob Geis, Consultant, Jonathan Aboud, General Manager, and Jamie Traxler, District Council. Negotiating parties are Isla Vista Community Services District and the County of Santa Barbara. And under negotiation is the price and terms of payment. Second item is conference with real property negotiators pursuant to government code section 54956.8.
I just have a typo. I'll let you know.
Okay. Property is 68914 Fortuna Road, Goleta, California, 93117. Agency negotiators are Marcos Aguilar, Board President, Carrie Topliff, Vice President, Bob Geis, Consultant, Jonathan Aboud, General Manager, Jamie Traxler, District Council. Negotiating parties are the Isla Vista Community Services District and the County of Santa Barbara, and under negotiation is the price and terms of payment. The
And
third.
the typo was that it's Meridian Group who's the negotiating party for 1.2.
Okay, so negotiating parties are Isla Vista Community Services District and Meridian Property Group. Third item is conference with real property negotiators pursuant to government code section 54956.8. The property is the vacant lot on Meridian next to 6518 Madrid. The agency negotiators are Marcos Aguilar, Board President, Carrie Topliff, Vice President, Bob Geis, Consultant, Jonathan Aboud, General Manager, and Jamie Traxler, District Council. Negotiating parties are the Isla Vista Community Services District and Todd Fisher. Under negotiation are the price and terms of payment. So we can now convene into closed session.
All right, thank you very much for reading that. We will now convene in a closed session.
Yeah, just repeat it. Thank you, sorry.
I wanted to announce that I'll be recusing myself from item 6.1, the real property negotiation for 970 and 976 Embarcadero Del Mar, and the Pardal Solar Lot, due to my employment with the County of Santa Barbara, and I'll be leaving the room once we get to that point. This sounds like we're going to take the first two first, or the second two first.
Correct.
Can you potentially additionally move the YouTube stream?
I will.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
I will.
I'm freezing.
Oh, I know now that So,
At least someone's better.
all right, we'll get to them.
Nice.
Okay, we are reconvening. We're reconvening, District Council, could you share if there's anything to report out?
Yes, so we met on 3 items. The first was conference with real property negotiators pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.8 regarding properties 970 and 976 Embarcadero Del Mar. Director Brandt recused himself from this conversation. Direction was provided to staff. No final action was taken. We had a conference with real property negotiators pursuant to Government Code Section 54956 regarding 6891 Fortuna Road, Goleta, California, 93117. Under negotiation was the price in terms of payment. Direction was given to staff. No action was taken on this item. The last was conference with real property negotiators pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.8 regarding the vacant lot on Meridian next to 6518. Under negotiation was the price in terms of payment. Direction was given to staff. No final action taken.
All right, thank you very much. That concludes our agenda. I'd like to move to section 7, our future meeting dates and future agenda items. Would any directors like to add to our growing agenda list? Yes, Director.
As many of you know, there has been a movie to recently come out about Deltopia, which portrays, quite frankly, a dangerous and concerning depiction of Isla Vista. On that note,
we want to bring a resolution to the board at our next meeting if possible, just to kind of publicly denounce the picture that it paints of our community.
Okay. All right, any other items that folks would like to share? I see
Future
none.
agenda item list is getting smaller, thankfully.
Good for us.
We're plucking away at it.
Okay.
Good job.
We did a lot of good work tonight.
Mhm.
The next regular meeting of the Board of Directors will take place on September 26th, 2023 at 6 p.m. on Zoom and at the Community Room 970 Embarcadero Del Mar. We are now adjourned.
Good job, everyone.
Oh my God.
Why don't we give these back to you because it was a closed session item?
Yeah. Oh.
Do we have to give them back to you?
You can keep them if you
Oh,
want.
I thought-
I mean, it's up to you. It's up to you.
Okay.